Welcome to Cody in the Cinema. Today I'm discussing my top 10 Disney movies. And I'll specifically be covering movies that Disney created. So I won't be mentioning Star Wars movies in here, as much as I'd love to throw the Alec Guinness first movie at you. I literally went to my shelves and I pulled 10 off, and I pulled a few more, and then I just switched around until I had the 10 I was confident in. I went with my gut feeling, a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of thinking about the quality of the writing, the animation, all these different factors to determine my top 10. And as always, these things are personal bias, right? I'll be interested to see what your top 10 are or your favorites in the comments as well, as Disney has made some remarkable movies over the years. The first one I wanted to bring up, my number 10 pick, is Frozen, a movie that's so popular that it's kind of a victim of its own success and that people are tired of hearing Let It Go over and over again, and maybe it has turned off some viewers because their children were so fascinated by it. I began teaching around 2012, and this movie, I've never seen a film that was in the collective consciousness of students as Frozen was. They all knew it. The songwriting is so catchy and fantastic. The animation is fun. I love the twist within Frozen, especially the really good twist. And I have this thing. I love Idina Menzel. If you have not, I'm making this as a holiday kind of video. Look up her songs, her Christmas songs, if you want to add those to your playlist on your Christmas playlist. You're going to enjoy her singing there. I think she has some of the best vocals in the history of Disney. And who doesn't love Olaf? There's a funny little story. I just have to share this. I was in Asheville one time, and we forgot Olaf. We have a little stuffed Olaf. And we ran back, to grab him. And that is just such a magical, fun character. Frozen, my number 10 pick, and easily one of the most fun in the entire series. Very creative. Number 9, I'm going to go with something that it's probably my most controversial pick. To put this in the top 10, I love it. The Jungle Book live action version. I actually like this better than the original. And I've seen the original animated many times, but this was the only live action that I think was really made full use of that concept. I think all the character voices are fantastic. Idris Elba as Shere Khan is absolutely brilliant. There are some really cheesy pieces of dialogue, but overall it's just such a fun movie. And Bill Murray does this really good Baloo. I think he understood the assignment, and he's just such a great actor that he really latched onto that character. I also enjoy how this particular movie handles the combat aspects. I think the director does a good job. Whoever directed this, Jon Favreau, yeah. He does a good job of kind of giving us the bare bones of the story and letting the actors and the animation do their work as well. And Christopher Walken is completely ridiculous as King Louie in this. Of course, also featuring one of my favorite actors, Giancarlo Esposito, from the Breaking Bad series as Gus Fring, and he's also in Do the Right Thing. And gosh, he has that presence as the wolf. Can't remember the name of the wolf right now, but he's really good at it. Oh yeah, Ben Kingsley's in this. I forgot Ben Kingsley's in this. He's the panther. Oh man, I love that movie. I think it's so much fun. And I actually I've taught segments of The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, and so I have a special affinity for the film because I think it's so accessible from an educational standpoint. All right, on to some choices that aren't as controversial here. My number 8 pick is going to be Beauty and the Beast. Now, this film has many different renditions. There is an excellent French version of this from the 40s, I believe. And I think that might have been my first foreign film and certainly my first French film. Beautiful film. Roger Ebert talked about how it was one of the most magical movies. And this one gets it right. If I'm not mistaken, Alan Menken did the writing on the songs and just did a great job of just instantly introducing us to Belle and the way that the town seems to view her as peculiar just because she enjoys learning and reading. And I think that's just sort of a universal topic, just right out of the gates that we get to see. Look at this artwork on the back with this rose, huh? Gaston is one of their better villains in the entire Disney canon as well, because he's a little bit likable for a long time. And the song where he shows off, what is it, like nobody does the things like Gaston? Beautiful songwriting. I think that this is one of the Disney princesses that I tend to gravitate toward in terms of like being heroic and being a good role model, because she does teach young people the value in learning and wisdom and making good plans and seeking knowledge. Excellent film. Oh, and it has Angela Lansbury. Fun fact, I'm just going to throw this out here as a freebie. There's a black and white picture of Dorian Gray movie with Angela Lansbury in it. Picture of Dorian Gray. You got to see it. All right, back on topic. Moana is my number, what is this, 7? 7 video, or pick of movies. Moana, I think, that has one of the prettiest color palettes in the collection. I really like the spirit and the energy and the way the conflict is presented so early on as something so universal. We all want to go to new places, and there's always something holding us back on the island. I think everybody has that feeling and can relate to it. The songs are fun to sing along to. It doesn't have very many dull moments. And there's that little critter that walks on the boat, the little bird. Man. You know what's fun? Whenever you actually make these videos on the cuff like this, you're actually able to dig into what you really love about a movie. And I'm just thinking about that little critter that like keeps falling off the boat. This is another movie that some of my students were into when I was first teaching that we would talk about, so some memories there. As an adult, I think this is one that I've really enjoyed. All right, my number 6 here. One of the most probably, like, if I were to say what do I think is the best movie visually that Disney's ever made, it might be this one. I'm looking to see if I would pick anything above that. Probably up there with my number 1 pick, which I'll get to, but Sleeping Beauty has to be one of their prettiest movies, if not their best looking. This whole thing looks like a painting. Every frame looks like a painting. The closest I've seen to that in a not animated movie would be something like Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece Barry Lyndon, where every scene feels like a painting. This is a beautiful, terrific movie in that respect. Now, some of the characters aren't as good as some of your best Disney characters, and it does hold it back just a tad, but Sleeping Beauty, the sequence where the Maleficent, I think her name is, she speaks to Aurora in her own voice, so she's like pulling like a doppelganger kind of creepy thing there, and she convinces her to go through the fireplace up the stairs and touch the spindle. That used to give me nightmares as a kid, and I have watched that sequence so many times, and I think that is still one of the best horror sequences that's not in a horror movie. It's fantastic. It's like maybe 10 minutes or something. It is a phenomenal scene, and I think every director should watch that sequence and learn how to build tension. Love it. Sleeping Beauty, fantastic film. All right, now we're in my top 5. And their best, one of their best comedies for bridging the gap between young and old and kind of getting the whole family together. And a movie that's endlessly entertaining, that I think takes a lot of cues from great musicals like Singing in the Rain, is my number 5 pick, Enchanted, starring Amy Adams in a role for the ages where she's, if you haven't heard of this or seen this, she's an actual Disney princess who gets pulled into the real world when she's looking for something, and she learns kind of like how it actually is. But the whole movie somehow never gives up hope. No matter what happens, there's enough, like, I don't want to call it being naive, but there's enough hope for the kids and enough truth for the adults, and it just finds that happy medium, and it's always fun. A few catchy tunes, but mostly just really funny and fun to watch. And this is one I would watch. I've watched it so many times since I've been an adult, and I just think it's really fun. Great movie. Great movie. I was trying to remember who all was in this. It does have James Marsden, Patrick Dempsey, and note that Susan Sarandon and Idina Menzel have small roles if you haven't seen it. Fantastic film. From here, we get into the films that I really struggle to tell you how much more I like one than the other. And other than my number one's been my number one for years. But these next three, I could roughly like change them in any order. But I did go with number four as the original Snow White. If you aren't familiar with the history of Snow White, this was a major film event in film history. This was the first time that the animated feature film was really a thing. I'm kind of simplifying and condensing the history there, but this was such a big deal at the time, and it landed perfectly, and most of the plot still holds up pretty well. A great villain there in The Witch with the Apple. That whole sequence is fun, and it's just such a pretty film, especially in the 4K version. You might be surprised how good that animation still looks. The only small thing is like some of the faces and stuff. Like I feel like Disney got a lot better in that regard, but this particular film is the heart of Disney to me. It is everything they are good at rolled into one film, and Whistle While You Work, of course, making the way for endless great Disney song after great Disney song. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, an absolute classic. And this is one of the films that I think as an adult, if you were to go back and rewatch, you would be able to appreciate kind of all of the little small pieces, the mannerisms of the animals, the animation and how they move. That kind of thing will stand out to you more if you've seen some weaker films, especially CGI films. A lot of the live action movies that Disney's doing now don't have those little nuances, and so it's nice to see. All right, number three, one of the films that has always scared me. This movie's scary, it's terrifying. It's a good exploration of life and death and growth and regrowth, and it's called Bambi. This is a terrific universal message about growing up and learning to cope with life as it comes to you and the unique friends that you see along the way. I haven't watched Bambi as recently as some of these others. There is a sequence here when it's raining that is still kind of haunting and a little morose. I've been watching one of the old Nosferatu movies in prep for that that Eggers movie, and I feel a little bit of that vibe. It's a little spooky, and of course we know the scene with the hunter that's so tough to watch. That actually the hunter made the American Film Institute's list of top villains, like very near the top, because of how sad that is. I love the use of color in this. I think the beautiful spring flowers of this is just a fantastic film all around. Number two, the film that I think in the entire Disney canon does have the very best music. Some of the most innovative music, great songwriting. All of the songs kind of lead you to new pieces of conflict or character development is The Little Mermaid. And I did watch this in the last few months. And of course, I think their most Disney-esque princess was probably Ariel, played by Joni Benson, like a strong, capable young woman who's curious, who wants to push boundaries, but in an appropriate way, and never wants to be dishonorable, but is trying to, it's a very universal message there. And this is, I think, the best songwriting from Alan Menken. It has the terrific Under the Sea. If you're a Siskel and Ebert fan like I am, you should actually look up their review for Little Mermaid. Gene Siskel just was obsessed with Under the Sea. And go listen to it again as an adult. Like if you're an adult watch, it's just gonna get stuck in your head because it's so fantastic. And every lyric, every line builds up the conflict, the characters, the situation. It's so, it feels like it was edited completely flawlessly. And of course, Part of Your World is maybe the best. Okay, I think that's my favorite Disney song, Part of Your World. What do you all think? You'll have to tell me in the comments what your favorite Disney song is. That one, Gaston, I really like the Gaston song. I like Poor Unfortunate Souls a lot too in there. Honorable mention here to The Lion King. It did just miss my top 10, but I think that has some of the best songs as well. Definitely a film I like. It just didn't make my top 10. Again, it's hard to make a top 10 list, but let me tell you about my number one. So a lot of people, I'll tell people my number one, and they will say, Cody, why is this your number one? It's so weird. It doesn't feel like a Disney movie. It's too dark and depressing and sad. I disagree with that. Pinocchio is the best Walt Disney movie ever made. It's one of their most creative. The opening shots with the clocks and all those things with Geppetto, it makes a broad, vibrant world, and it feels 3D, and it's lived in. It has the adorable the cat, and the little fish. And whenever Pinocchio comes to life, we root for him because he has something new. He's this fresh take on life, and we all want that. We want to feel like him, but most of us are more like Jiminy Cricket, right? We're like walking around reluctantly accepting a job, and we want our badge. When you wish upon a star. I think the whale at the end is terrifying. I actually, for people who are, my art film lovers in here, I just made this comparison from this whale to the one in Werckmeister Harmonies, the Bela Tarr art film, and what a terrifying, menacing presence that thing is. And the whole sequence where all the different characters get turned into donkeys, like, that's terrifying. That is really what happens to people. Young people get led astray by this and that, and then they get promised a cheap, fun, easy time, and what ends up happening? They turn into jackasses. And just a really good all-around film. I have Pinocchio. I think Pinocchio is probably the only Disney film in my personal top 100 of all films. And it will always stay there. And when I was younger, and I think in the first grade, I remember watching it a number of times on a VHS in my babysitter's basement, right? And I would just sit there and I would watch Pinocchio, because I didn't have access to it, so there's that nostalgia as well. But all these movies carry a certain amount of nostalgia with them. So that's my personal top 10. I would love to hear what your top 10, or maybe you have a top 2 or 3, or one you watch all the time. Let me know in the comments if you did enjoy this video or any of my other videos. If you want to do me a favor and click the like button. Like buttons do grow YouTube channels, and consider subscribing. I cover all kinds of movie stuff. I'm all over the place with what I do here. And I hope you did enjoy, and we will see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.